Hi, Donovan Woods here.
Hey, it's me, Tom Power.
We're here to tell you about our brand new podcast. It's called The Big Five.
So, Donovan, what is The Big Five?
Yeah, exactly. What is The Big Five? That's what The Big Five is all about. Every week, Tom and I will sit down with a special guest and dive into new topics, debating things like, what are the Big Five farm animals? The Big Five types of hat? The Big Five guys named Paul?
Martin, Revere, Mezcal, McCartney, John Paul II.
The debate is settled by a listener from somewhere across the country. It's like a game show.
It is a game show.
The Big Five, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
Yeah, there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is work.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sarah Sehegian.
And I'm your other co-host, Sadaf Hassan. And today we are digging into one of the strangest, most 2026 sentences I can possibly say. Spencer Pratt. Yes, that's Spencer Pratt, the man who once symbolized the absolute peak of reality TV villainy, is now a serious political candidate, Sarah.
Yeah.
Which forces us to ask, how the hell did we get here? How did the villain of the Hills become a political outsider figure? Because that is how he presents himself, but we'll get into all of that. I think the bigger question is actually, is this that surprising? We've seen this before, celebs running for something in the political world. And if the last decade has taught us anything, it's that fame is no longer separate from politics. In fact, it seems more intertwined than ever. As for Spencer Pratt, annoyingly, disturbingly, fascinatingly, he does understand the machine and the pipeline from celebrity to politician. He even published a book earlier this year with wild timing called The Guy You Loved to Hate, Confessions from a Reality TV Villain. Before we dive in, Sarah, tell me how you got to know this man. What were your feelings about him before? How do you feel about him now?
So I watched The Hills like every other millennial did. We all watched it. It was a cultural experience. I watched it so I could watch the after show, to be honest. That was
I
great.
loved it. Yes.
With Jesse Cruikshank and Dan Levy. That was amazing television. I just have to say, shout out. I love Schitt's Creek, but I honestly, in my heart, that's my favorite thing either of them has ever done. In my heart, it was just so much fun every single week. So I watched The Hills like everybody else, and I thought he was a tool. He was the worst. And there were a lot of bad guys on that show, right? There was competition. Remember Justin Bobby?
I can't forget. He wore combat boots to the beach.
Exactly. So there was a lot of competition for villain of that show, especially amongst the men, because all the men really deeply sucked. But his relationship with Heidi Montag was so dysfunctional. And there was nothing redeeming about him. He wasn't even cute. I know that's superficial, but I was like, I don't understand how he's in any of these people's orbit, let alone how he managed to lock Heidi down for 20 years.
God, yeah. God, it has been that long, too. It's wild. I have the same thoughts, completely the same thoughts. I mean, he was very scummy and he destroyed a friendship We will get into it. And I feel like, honestly, he kind of destroyed Heidi's life. She was on one path and then very much took a different route the moment that she met him. Of course, she's a grown woman. She could have made her own decisions. She's kind of chaotic herself, but he's very much an immovable force, right? Like he corrupts. That's his whole thing. He is fascinating to me as an individual. Now, I cannot lie, and as our longtime listeners know, I have very problematic taste in men. I will say he made me laugh quite a lot. Like I found him to be very good comedic energy in the hills here and there. Like he would help move the show forward. And sometimes he would bring in some Sarah's side-eyeing me for sure. I felt like he would bring in some comedy when we really needed it on the show. That being said, listen, trust me, I hated the guy. I wasn't in love with him, but I just thought he was very funny. And you know what I really loved him on? Princess of Malibu, which not a lot of people remember, but
yes, I do remember that
Hills.
show because when The Hills came out, I did watch that briefly to try to figure out his origin story.
Yeah, who the hell is this guy?
Mhm.
Well, okay, let's jump into his origin story. You're probably still gonna have questions after all of this because honestly, how does one explain villainy? I'm not sure. Because his mom was like, his parents were very normal. Like his dad was a dentist, his mom was a housewife. Very simple beginnings. He was born in LA in 1983, which is very important because part of his current political pitch is that he isn't a transplant or a celebrity just like parachuting into the city. He's a local guy. He went to school there. He very clearly understood the celebrity culture as both an ecosystem and a ladder, which I think is fascinating if you've grown up in that space, how you take it in. Before The Hills, as we said, he was already trying to get into reality TV. So he was friends with Brody Jenner, which is a name you should know if you're a millennial. And if you don't, I'm worried.
So handsome. I mean, obviously you don't want to end up with him, but
No.
so handsome. And a weird Kardashian connection. He's their stepbrother. Anyway, very good looking guy.
Such a complicated family tree. Yeah, very good looking, but I think a little bit of an airhead too at the time. I think he's evolved since then. I'll give you that, Brody. Spencer had produced or helped produce a lot of reality adjacent projects, but of course, my personal favorite, he did create The Princess of Malibu. That was in 2005. And do you think this was perhaps like one of the very first reality shows that I ever saw, which is probably partly why I was so impressed? I mean, we had The Real Housewives of Orange County came up around then. We had, and this was all after the OC, right? And then we had Laguna Beach. But Princess in Malibu was kind of like an odd early predecessor, which does make me think, like, did Spencer get in early before everyone? That's kind of wild. So Princess of Malibu basically involved Brody getting into shenanigans, and Spencer was sort of pretending to play his publicist slash manager slash assistant. But a lot of it was him just ribbing Brody's stepdad, David Foster, the musician, who incidentally is now one of Spencer's biggest political supporters.
I think they're aligned on the issues.
I mean, look at how the relationship has evolved. Because on Princess of Malibu, David could not stand Spencer. He was very much like my son's annoying friend. And now look where we are. My God. So Spencer created that show. So by the time he enters The Hills, he doesn't feel like someone who's just stumbled into fame. He feels like someone who has studied the genre, like very much so.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, is the key to this guy, right? I think he very much thinks about all of this stuff. He's a strategist. He understood that reality TV isn't just about reality. You're playing a character, right? There's a hero, a victim, there's the betrayal, and then, of course, there's the villain. He was never just a boyfriend on the show, and I think he knew that from the very beginning. Now, The Hills premiered just a year after Princess of Malibu, so you can imagine Spencer was working. So that was in 2006. It was a spinoff of the wonderful Laguna Beach. It was supposed to follow Lauren Conrad as she moved to LA and worked at Teen Vogue, went to clubs, shout out Ledoux, dated a clown after clown after clown. My God, didn't go to Paris. Oh, the way she is still known as the girl who didn't go to Paris 20 years later is wild.
I'm sure she's been to Paris by now, too.
Many
she has.
times.
She went on one of the later seasons of
Yeah.
The Hills. She's been to Paris. It's fine.
She's wealthy. She goes all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, the show was aspirational to a degree, right? I think for a lot of us millennial girls, but in a very specific OO's way, right? Like it wouldn't exist now. Everyone was thin. They were super tan. Their jobs were very clearly fake. I don't know how much interning they actually did at Teen Vogue, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting because I feel like it was this weird mishmash of The Devil Wears Prada, right? Plus the Laguna Beach style shows, which were already just a ripoff of the OC. So this is such a fascinating postmodern period in our culture. Yeah, just this Franken television where everything is just a mishmash of a bunch of different things and it doesn't really fit. It's all chaotic. And then, yeah, of course, chaos ensues. And some of the chaos is obviously planned. And then some of it, I think, is just because the whole idea doesn't really make sense. So, of course, everything's going to explode at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting because even in watching Laguna Beach specifically, which again was like one of the first ones, right? I felt like it was very clear it wasn't scripted because frankly, not much happens. Although I remember back then being riveted, right? But with The Hills, I think there were elements where you could tell, like, okay, they're reshooting that scene, or maybe that wasn't supposed to happen, or things didn't always make sense, as you said. And then I think, especially the longer they went on, and then they did that terrible spinoff, and then, yeah.
Oh, The City?
The City I loved. I meant The Hills, The Beginnings, if you remember.
Oh, I thought you meant The City because I actually know, I've heard through the grapevine that the guy, I mean, allegedly the guy who played not Whitney's boyfriend, but the friend's boyfriend who was from Toronto. This was the first time Toronto get to be cool, where they're like, he's from Toronto. And they're like, ooh, mystique. That was completely fake, apparently. Allegedly, I heard that, like, basically they're like, we need like a cool boyfriend for this girl. Do you want to play the boyfriend and then publicize your band? And he was like, yeah. This is allegedly what happened.
I believe it because I do think I did enjoy The City, but I do think it was very not scripted as in like the dialogue was set in stone and on paper, but as in like they picked characters, quote unquote, and what was going to happen next and that sort of thing. And maybe boyfriends weren't actually real boyfriends. They were just hired actors.
That Australian guy who dated Whitney,
Yes.
I would be shocked if that was her real boyfriend.
Yeah. There was also the French guy, if you remember, that Lauren was hanging around. Anyway, there was plenty of people who I just questioned a little bit. And yeah, and they were always available for lunch while they were working at Teen Vogue. I was like, how? I would never get even a minute on my internships. Anyway, okay, so at first, while we were watching The Hills, the big emotional center was Lauren and Heidi's friendship. Heidi Montag, adorable little blonde, also a little bit of an airhead, but very sweet, very endearing. They were roommates, they were best friends, they were going to do The City together. It was very exciting. And it was sweet watching them get into it, right? And they were going on different paths. Then Spencer steps into the picture. Heidi starts dating Spencer. Lauren thinks Spencer is bad news. She was very right. Her instincts were spot on. Heidi chooses Spencer over their friendship. The friendship collapses. And then comes the sex tape rumor. This is such a wonderful throwback, Sarah. I hadn't revisited this in a while. Now, the rumor that Lauren had made a sex tape with her ex-boyfriend, Jason, traveled. It spread quite a bit. Lauren started to have suspicions that Spencer and Heidi had concocted it and helped it spread, which gave us one of the most famous lines in reality TV history. You know what you did. Do you remember that? I can see Lauren in my head saying it.
I love also Lauren is just such a creature of that time because she looked like the American Kate Middleton. She still does. They look exactly alike. And she has that vibe. That style. It's just, anyway, iconic.
That's such a good comparison, Sarah. I totally say. Yeah. And she really loved a headband. And I loved that. I loved Lauren. She was kind of like the perfect protagonist in the sense that she wasn't exactly like the most exciting character, right? You could project anything onto her. So she worked perfectly, but she was cute. She had a goal. She actually wanted to work in fashion. She does now. I root for you, Lauren Conrad, LC. I know you weren't the most exciting, but I'm happy you're doing well. Anyway, for the record, Spencer did spread that rumor about the sex tape, shocker. And he seemed to love that it existed and that it was destroying this friendship, which was very chilling because, again, these two were the center of the show, Lauren and Heidi. And so it was devastating to see them pulled apart. And also just to see how Heidi would support him no matter what, right? She moves out to live with him. She spends every minute of her time with him. She started to change herself for him. She got a lot of work done around this time. A lot of people pinned that on Spencer. She quit her job. She was just a different person. It also felt like, I hate to say it, she lost some brain cells while she was with him. It just didn't make any sense. Anyway, everyone hated him for it on the show and off the show. This was the era of Perez Hilton and when Us Weekly was really everything. And they were constantly keeping him in the headlines with Heidi. And of course, this is when they became known as Speidi. They were kind of one of the first couples to really understand, I felt like, how to feed the fame beast, right? They were photographed constantly. They staged moments. So do you remember that infamous time where Heidi had like a chair set up outside their house and she was just sitting on this chair sobbing and there was no explanation?
Yes. Yes. I believe Spencer Pratt to be a reality TV savant. I think he is a genius at reality TV specifically, not at anything else. I do not believe that he should run a city. But I do believe he gets this genre better than anyone else because he's put in his 10,000 hours. It's kind of like Elizabeth Moss gets prestige TV because she started in it early. He's like that, but with reality. And so maybe this was Heidi's idea. But I also think that a lot of these ideas were his, and he just understood what would be attention grabbing.
I completely agree. And that's really the gist of what we're talking about today. Like, I think you're so right. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing. He's a genius at this. Say what you will about him. He did know exactly what he was doing. And I think actually, I think it was mostly him mechanizing all of this stuff. I have a hard time assuming it would have been Heidi. I think Spencer, through all of this, also revealed a lot about reality TV, right? That the villain is typically the most honest person in the room because they're the only one really admitting that they're performing to a degree. I feel like everyone else on the hills, at least, will say, well, honestly, really, a lot of reality TV, they kind of pretend that the cameras just happened to be there. Whereas I think Spencer was very open about being aware that they're there and he's going to put on a show and give them plot and narrative. And if you turn to any of your favorite reality shows, even if I think of my favorite Real Housewives, it's true. The villains are oddly the most honest. They say what they really believe on the one hand, which is usually something provocative and not everyone agrees with. But at the same time, they're not performing to the degree that everybody else is because they're very honest about what's going on here. The people who are the protagonists, quote unquote, tend to be kind of faking a little bit of kindness and because it's a little safer, right? It keeps them the more popular character in a sense. Maybe I'm getting too cynical, but this is what Spencer has revealed to me. Sarah, you shared a little bit just now about why you feel like he has been such a savant, which I agree with. I want to know more. Like, what do you make of the way he's able to play this game and also the way he's pulled Heidi into it specifically?
He understands the beats of every reality show he's on. Did you ever see that episode of Wife Swap he was on?
No.
So Heidi went to Olympian Amanda Beard's family. I think that's her name. I think it's Amanda Beard. And Olympian Amanda Beard was his wife for the week. And listen, it was hilarious because he definitely knew what to do there, right? Because there's this high achieving Olympian. She's very type A. She's accomplished so much in her life. And she just can't even with him because he was being his laziest self. Like, I think he's super hardworking? No, but he was definitely being his laziest self. And at one point, she's decided that she's going to like reform him. She's going to help him because she just can't be around him like this. And so she asks him like, okay, do you have a life goal? Like, do you have a career goal? And I think what he says is, I want to be an FBI hostage negotiator. Like, you just pick something so ambitious where he's so far behind. And she's just like, I think like she makes some sort of comment about like working on literacy first or something like that. Like, it's like, why do you think based on your trajectory so far that your second career can be FBI hostage negotiator? Like, you can be in charge of people's lives. Like, you could be there in the most stressful circumstances, the circumstances that even the most level-headed and intelligent people find overwhelming and can't deal with. And he's like, that's my career. I could do that.
I mean, he's such a bullshitter, right? It's like, even in that moment, is he joking? Is he being honest? Like, he knows how to go for the punchline,
exactly.
Right? And in that way, he kind of ends up making the other person look like a fool for even entertaining his thinking. Like, even when I've watched his campaign ads right now for his run, it's like I can't want to laugh because I don't buy it. And it feels like he's joking. Again, he's putting on a performance and he knows he is. And I think for those of us who've watched him for so long, it's hard to take seriously because we know what he's up to, right? Like, he knows the game. You're so right. God, I will go back and watch that episode. You know what, guys? We will put links for everything in the show notes. But this is where I think the story gets a little more complicated because, Spencer, he's behaved terribly. He was controlling. He was smug, manipulative, so fame hungry, and honestly, at times just super unpleasant to watch. But he was also working inside a genre that rewards all of those qualities, and it pretends to be shocked when someone takes the assignment a little too seriously, right? So him kind of winning at this game of reality TV sort of bites him in the ass. Like, he's such a good character on the show, but then people don't really like him for it. So these two, again, they become known as Speidi. They were everywhere. Heidi even had a music career, very briefly, if you recall. She had extensive plastic surgery coverage. God, that went on forever. She had 10 procedures in a day, famously. And the media covered it like a circus had come to town. And you know what? That's what it felt like. And I was sitting at home and I was like, this is Spencer's fault. He did this to her. Like, why does she feel like, even well past her time on reality TV, she needs to do something like this? And it just makes me wonder, is he just constantly pushing at home that they need to be on camera? They need to be out in the world on the screen. She needs to catch up. And I don't know, like that. I always worry about her in the back of my head and the way he's kind of corrupted her. But yeah, they did, and they are doing Fame together. She's very much a part of his campaign. They have 2 kids now. Wild to imagine him as a father and her as a mother. But he's running as a family man. So, it's a big part of his message. These two, though, around this time when she had the 10 surgeries in a day, were well after the Hills and the reality TV stints. They kind of burned through a lot of the money they had, and they were also blacklisted in some ways. I think the press also got tired of them, caught on to their stunts and their efforts to just get photographed for whatever, like crying on a chair outside your front door. And so I feel like the world moved on a little bit, right? Like, there's definitely been this long period here where I didn't think about Spencer Pratt at all. And I do imagine that has to be the scariest thing for people like this who are I feel like Spencer feels like he doesn't exist if he's not famous. But I want to hear from you, Sarah. What do you think happens to someone like this who is so bent on being on screen when they're not there anymore and they're not on the cover of every tabloid? How do these people reckon with that? What happens to their identity?
Well, I think it must be very hard. And I think that it must cause a lot of strife, which is why I'm surprised that their marriage has lasted. I'm surprised they're still together because I thought that when their fame waned, they would just separate in order to kind of be newsworthy again. You create a new relationship that often gets you at least a little bit of publicity at first. So I am surprised that they stuck with it, which I don't think this is a good relationship. I think it's likely toxic, but they have committed to it, which is more than I expected from them. I didn't think that they would commit to this in the long term because this is a longer marriage than most celebrities have, and even celebrities who are much more normal than they are. So it's interesting, but of course, this is why he's running for mayor. It's a way to access attention. I think it started out as a stunt, and horrifyingly, it gained traction. And so it's no longer a stunt. Now he's actually running for mayor.
Yes, and I agree with you. I don't know if he even intended to go that far. It did at the beginning to me also feel like a total stunt. Like, I heard about it, I laughed, I moved on. Now I can no longer just laugh and move on. I have to pay attention because it's real and serious. We're going to get into it a bit more after the break, but I like what you said about how it's wild that they're still together. It is. I'm shocked. And that they have children who they are bringing into this machine. I worry for the kids too. Listen, Heidi was never someone who seemed to have much self-esteem back in the day. And sure, we saw her when she was really young. She was in her early 20s. Things change as you grow older. You build confidence. But I do feel like he preyed on that a bit. And I feel like she hangs on him for a little bit of that confidence and for feeling like there's more to her. And I think she's also gotten caught up in the fame machine. I don't think she's as fame hungry as he is, but I do get the sense that that's what she also harps her value on, right? Like, if people are paying attention.
Honestly, it seems like that's the only form of validation she got. I'm not a psychologist. I've not met this woman. But in the early days of the Hills, it seemed like she found school really challenging. She might have had some learning differences that were never addressed and needed some support. It seemed like her family wasn't able to give her that support that she needed. And so, Lauren was accomplishing all of these other things. And yes, a lot of her accomplishments were fake, but the show presented her as an up-and-coming professional woman. That's how it presented her. So by contrast, Heidi was presented as kind of the lovable screw-up best friend who was not as smart, and Lauren was the main character. So you get to be the supporting character. And listen, I think that that's why she was so desperate for male validation. She wasn't getting validation from school. She wasn't getting validation from the way she was edited on the show. How do you get it? This guy tells you you're the main character to me, even if otherwise he's toxic and your relationship is dysfunctional. I can see a young woman falling for that. And I guess if he just hooks you young enough, he can kind of brainwash you. Again, I've never met these people. I don't know for a fact this is what happened. I just know women who've been through similar situations.
Yeah. I do too. That is so well said. And I do think for many women, there is a moment in your younger life where male validation feels like everything. I was definitely there, and I know a lot of people who were, and hopefully it's something you grow out of, right? And I think, unfortunately, as you said, like he got his claws into her at the right time. So I don't know. It breaks my heart. I always hope that like one day she'll just leave him and then like have her Betty Draper moment and find like a Henry and just like someone who sees her for who she is and is good enough with that and lets her be. But alas. Okay, this feels like a good time to take a quick little break. Go watch that Wife Stop episode if you want right now. We'll link to it in the show notes. We'll be right back.
Did you hear this? Apparently raccoons are now considered urban employees in Toronto, and they get benefits. I swear, I saw it on a reel.
Okay, so apparently Canada is switching to a 4-day weekend. Not like a 4-day work week, like a 4-day weekend.
I saw this thing that said if you don't take your shoes off on a plane, the airline can actually fine you. Like, it's a new rule. They're cracking down.
Or you could get the real story. Hi, I'm Karen Ciolin, an award-winning news reporter and host of the Big Story podcast. My team and I break down what's actually happening, from world-shaping events to the everyday stories that spark debate, so you can make sense of it all. We're here to explain what matters and why it matters to you, and give you the context you need for those kitchen table conversations. Trusted, Canadian-focused, curious, news that connects the dots. Listen to the Big Story wherever you get your podcasts.
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
And we're back. So after the original peak of Speidi, Spencer and Heidi enter this strange kind of afterlife. They pop up on reality shows like Celebrity Big Brother, Marriage Boot Camp, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Lest We Forget, and eventually The Hills, New Beginnings, which was MTV's attempt to revive the franchise. It was not good. I don't know if you watched it, Sarah. I could barely get through it. Yeah, it was awful. This is the one where like then they kind of show the curtain rising and they show the set dismantling and that the show is actually a production. It's like, yeah, thanks, guys. But something did happen that I think is pivotal in this era. So Spencer, I thought was funny all of the time, but nobody else did. But during this particular period, I think the internet catches on, right? A new generation is watching them. Well, watching Spencer, because Heidi was really out of the spotlight at this point. But in the 2010s and 2020s, everyone's online, right? And his clips on I'm a Celebrity, on Marriage Boot Camp, Wife Swap, they start going viral all over, particularly on TikTok and Twitter. And everybody starts finding him hilarious and are like, who is this guy? Which is wild. It's interesting because I think social media started to come at a time that perfectly aligned with Spencer's efforts into all this other reality TV, right? It intersected in this way where just the perfect audience found him on just the perfect platform. He oddly kind of started to make more sense, his whole shtick. So he started to become this eccentric internet figure, right? Like he had that obsession with crystals, which he sold. There was like a hummingbirds video he had. He was doing TikTok lives that everyone was tuning in for. It was very chaotic, dad. He is still Spencer, but I think he softened his image a little bit through all of this. He seemed more self-aware. And this is one of the weirder things I think about modern celebrity, right? If you wait long enough, the people that hated you can become the ones who also eventually find you charming. Things can change over time. I almost feel like it was accidental for him. I don't think he's that much of a genius that he saw that coming. Yeah, no, I feel like it just kind of worked out that way because tech shifted and generations shifted. But then in 2025, Spencer and Heidi's real life takes a turn. So their home is destroyed in the Pacific Palisades fires. They post about it online. They document their grief quite a bit. And the internet rallies around them because they've also been fans of Spencer at this point, right? And then so it feels natural to see something like this happen. We're going to support them, right? And we saw quite a lot of celebrities at this time come out share about losing their homes in the fire. Of course, Mandy Moore being a big one. Me and Sarah talked about this at length because I think Mandy ate out on that a little more than made sense. They didn't lose their whole home, guys. Anyway, that's a separate story. But anyway, okay, fans even started streaming Heidi's album, Superficial, to try and support them financially. And it did better on iTunes. It did better on the charts. So suddenly, Speidi are a family that lost their home. They're survivors, right? They're not washed up reality TV stars. They have a new brand. Spencer's political turn begins to make a strange kind of sense at this pivotal moment, I think. This is where I think it occurred to him, hey, I could be the mayor. I could be in politics. Because his whole campaign is built around the idea that the city failed people during the fires, right? And that the leadership was absent, bureaucracy is broken, and that regular LA folk are not being protected. Spencer is running as an outsider. That's very much how he presents himself. As a father, a lifelong LA guy, someone who has been personally burned by the system. He even sued the governor, Gavin Newsom, and the current LA mayor, Karen Bass, over the fires, by the way. And he even actually took it all the way to DC. Okay, so he really saw this, I think, at this point, as his base that he was going to run on. It's fascinating when you play it backwards. But anyway, now he's in his run. He's championing increased funding for the Los Angeles Police Department. Go figure. And he's redirecting homelessness. He wants to redirect homelessness funding to treatment and enforcement that would be mandatory under his call. So he's a Republican, by the way, even though it's a nonpartisan race.
Yeah. Well, and also in LA, something that people have to understand is LA has a long history of both Democrats and Republicans being really horrible to unhoused people, like really, really horrible, segregating them in really blatant ways, forcing them to live in horrible conditions, raising their camps regularly, like just really dehumanizing unhoused people. So this is, he is a Republican, I could see a Democrat proposing similar things in LA.
Yeah, me too. I know it's dark. I mean, anytime I've been to LA, it shocks me every time when I see the levels of homelessness that are just about everywhere, even by the biggest venues that you think are so glamorous and amazing. And then you see the encampments outside and it is very dark. So I don't know, it makes me a bit sad because I feel like that should be the first thing LA is cleaning up or is taking care of, like supporting those people. So Spencer, essentially at this point, he's rising from the ashes of his old villain persona and also the ashes of his actual house to run for mayor of LA.
Good line.
Thank you. I was hoping you'd say that. Thank you.
It was a good line.
So, Sarah, does this feel like a redemption arc to you? Does it feel like Spencer has ascended to the biggest stage of his career possible?
No, because I feel like, honestly, the redemption arc would be him. Like, I understand what happened to a lot of people during these fires is awful, right? Lots of people lost their houses in these situations. Mandy Moore, it's a bit complicated. And also Mandy Moore asked for us to give money to her brother-in-law when she's super rich, right? I know she's in that, that movie, that Nate Bargatze movie or whatever his name is, right? Like she could have given him money, but no. I mean, so many people lost their homes and didn't do this. What would have made me think he was kind of redeeming himself would be if he found like a really good candidate and backed them and went to their campaign events and was repping them online, right? That would be a redemption arc. Somebody who's decided, I'm going to pursue politics now and I'm going to help platform people that I think are competent. And it wouldn't even bother me that much if he picked a Republican, because it's different people have different political choices as long as it's not a Trump style Republican. But that would make me think, okay, he's come around. He's really trying to do whatever he thinks serves his community. It does not serve his community for him to be mayor, because if he thinks this was a failure of bureaucracy, what does he know about bureaucracy? You need somebody with like a master's in public administration to be the mayor. That's what you need. And I agree that I think there were failures of bureaucracy. I think that LA is a really complicated city. I think California is a really complicated state that has the same population as Canada, an entire country. I think there are issues, and I think there's probably a lot of stuff you need to solve. But I think if your bureaucracy is broken, you need an expert in policy and bureaucracy to fix it.
Yes, yes. Oh, well said. What a screed, Sarah. Yeah, you echoed everything I'm feeling. I think if you really actually care about the people, as you said, you're going to want to support the people who are educated in this. They have experience. He doesn't have any of that. I think he does see, I mean, we're going to talk about this more in a second, but I think he does see the way that he's played fame as a kind of experience, because of course now a lot of people see being in politics as being just the fame game, right? I mean, we're going to get into some of the people who've done this before, because there's a reason he sees it this way. I don't blame him. There's even this phrase that he's been using, which is about making LA camera ready. How hilarious and dark is that? That he's kind of looking at LA as a film set in a sense, right? Even in the way that he wants to get rid of the homelessness problem, right? It's like he just doesn't want any blemish on LA. He doesn't want people to see that. But it's not about actually taking care of those people and helping them. It's let's get them off the screen so nobody sees that dirt down there in the corner.
Exactly. You know who I'm surprised hasn't like run for mayor in response? Because I do understand in California, they kind of gravitate towards celebrity politicians. And you know what? That's their major industry, right? The film industry is a major industry. And so I get that. I'm really surprised because I think he's kind of a narcissist and thinks a lot of himself, that somebody like Dax Shepard hasn't been like, I'm going to run for mayor instead and save Los Angeles.
Oh my God, Sarah, you're so right, actually. I'm shocked. Oh my God, knock on wood, because I feel like he will eventually, now that you put it into the air. He's probably thought about it, I bet you. Actually, I'm wondering, has he even had Spencer on his podcast? I feel like that's a match made in heaven.
I don't know, but I think he thinks bigger. I think he wants to be the governor. I think like at some point he'll run for governor. Maybe he'll run against Kim Kardashian. I think I can see that happening. No, I do think that he has that kind of megalomania that would make him think that he could be the governor. I actually think perhaps he is educated. He's worked in the industry as a business owner. He might, I don't think he'd be an amazing mayor. I think he'd be a better mayor than Spencer Pratt. That would probably be more in his wheelhouse.
Wild
to run for mayor. But I feel like men always think bigger than they should think, right? So while Dax should probably run for mayor, he'll run for governor. While Spencer should not even run for dog catcher, he's running for mayor.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, here's the thing, though, because let's talk about how he is winning people, because here's the thing, he's doing quite well. He's doing very, very well. I'll give you the exact stats for him right now as we record this in a second, but some of the issues he's pointing to are big problems that LA is facing, right? So housing affordability, we mentioned the homelessness, fire preparedness, public safety, public trust. LA Angelinos are angry. They're super tired, right? They don't feel like traditional politicians have solved any of the issues. And when people stop believing the system works, that outsider candidate starts to actually look really appealing. But here's the uncomfortable part. As we've said, reality TV is great training if you want to get attention. It's not necessarily great for actual governance. And if this sounds a lot like Trump's playbook to you, Yeah, that's what Spencer's co-opting here, right? Politics increasingly does reward the same things reality TV rewards, which is wild to realize. So, conflict, personality, name recognition, clarity, enemies, slogans, viral moments. These are all things that Spencer is deeply fluent in. He knows how to talk directly to an audience. He knows how to say things that make people react, but also he knows exactly the things to make himself more appealing to that audience, even if he doesn't mean it, right? And that is so chilling to me. Now, let's get into a little bit of the history here because he's not the first celebrity to make this leap. We know that. I want to start at the beginning. So, the celebrity politician pipeline is long and it's strange and it's very American, but it's not only American. So, Ronald Reagan, classic example, an actor, Screen Actors Guild president, California governor, then president. I know a lot of people don't know that Ronald Reagan started out as such a Hollywood guy, but he was. That is very much his origin. That is who he was the entire time. And I think I wasn't around then, but I've read a lot about his time being in politics. And it's kind of wild because I do think he used that charm that got him into Hollywood in office, right? And that was a big part of his appeal. And I don't know that there was very much underneath that.
Oh, no, not at all. One brilliant thing about him was he was an amazing public speaker, but he didn't write his own speeches. A woman actually wrote his speeches whose name escapes me, and she was quite young at the time. But he just treated them like lines, right? You fed him lines. And then, so when the Challenger exploded, for example, that's one of the most famous speeches in American history. And it's a gorgeous speech that woman wrote in I don't know, minutes, basically. And it's a work of art. It's a masterpiece. It blows my mind. She was able to do that. And then he read it really well, but he's just reading lines, right? He was playing the character of the president. He's like, what would my character, the president, feel and think in this moment? Give me my lines.
I'm so glad you said that. Yes. Even now, right? We watch Spencer as he's performing this campaign and he's the same way. And then of course we had Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he went from bodybuilder to movie star to governor of California. I don't know that we're ever going to see a wilder trajectory than that. Of course, we've got Trump, Donald Trump. We've got a whole episode we've done on this guy, so we'll link back to that. But he went from real estate Zion, I guess you could say, to reality TV host to president twice. And he, of course, has changed the trajectory of this entire earth, I fear. He's done irreparable damage to the whole world.
Yes.
It will never be worse.
Yes, he has. Listeners, you guys should read that book, about The Apprentice, that the author of Ladies Who Punch wrote, which is quite interesting because it was when he was between terms and he was Trump was a lion in winter and was so desperate for attention that he sat down for this book with somebody who he knew would not be sympathetic to him, right? He knew that this was not a Republican writing it. And it's a fascinating book about just somebody who needs attention, right? And probably was president because he wanted attention and power. But then even when he loses that, and at the time it looked like he would never get it back, he can't shut up. He can't fade away with dignity or anything, any semblance of dignity, because he just needs the attention. And that's Spencer Pratt. That's the same psychology.
100% same. You said earlier, narcissistic, megalomaniac. And I feel like that's Trump, right? To the nth degree. I haven't read that book, so thank you for that, Chad. I'm going to read it too. And guys, we'll link to that in the show notes as well if you're interested. So then we've also got Jesse Ventura. He goes from professional wrestler to governor of Minnesota. Al Franken, who went from the comedy world, Saturday Night Live to the U.S. Senate. Speaking of seeing a politician and just wanting to laugh when he's being very serious. Wild. Dr. Oz ran for Senate. Cynthia Nixon of Sex and the City, she ran for governor of New York. She, I think, actually made a lot more sense.
She still didn't win, though.
Yeah, I know. Which maybe there's a connection there that someone who was actually maybe valid couldn't make it the whole way.
Trying. Yeah, exactly.
She was too good. Caitlyn Jenner, of course, running for California governor. Kanye West running for president in the way only Kanye could, dare I say. Okay, then there's Zelensky, so a non-American here, who's probably one of the more surreal examples, I think. He was an actor and comedian who played a fictional president on TV and then became the actual president of Ukraine. That is wild. I know there's some people who aren't aware of that. Go back and watch some of his TV clips. They're out there. It is so bizarre. I think history also shows, though, why we need to be careful about flattening all celeb politicians into the same category, right? Because some are vanity projects, there's no doubt about it, but some are actually people who have Some meet to their campaign. They're activists who happen to be famous. They actually have some experience in that world. Some become historically serious because history kind of demands it. And I think Zelensky fell into that a little bit. I don't think he ever could have predicted where his political trajectory would go, but he's certainly been handling it well, I would say. So when you think about celebrity politicians, who comes to mind? And is there anyone you think who's actually either made the transition well or could have been well suited? So we did mention Cynthia Nixon. I think she actually could have been a natural if she did win.
She started too big. She should have run for Congress. And I think she would have won. In the right district, I think she would have won. And that was her problem. She started too big. There's that saying, politics is show business for ugly people. And it's unkind and it's a generalization. It's a problematic saying. But if you want to be in politics as opposed to being a bureaucrat who actually, administers things, or a political staffer who's brainstorming the ideas and coming up with the policies, it's because you like attention. Every single politician likes attention. In fact, in order to be a good politician, you do have to like attention. You can't be a good politician if you don't like attention, because so much of it is meeting people, glad handling, public speaking, right? If you look at somebody like Barack Obama, and Barack Obama is someone I admire, I'm not being critical, the man loves attention. He's comfortable speaking in front of people. He actually has this almost supernatural ability to perform in the moment. If you watch, there's this amazing clip you can watch where he's about to be sworn in for the first time. This is in 2009, and you can watch him. He's by himself. He's going to become the first Black president, one of the youngest presidents in history. He's not with his family because you walk in alone. You don't get to walk in with your support person. And he kind of looks nervous. Like he's kind of doing weird things with his body language, and he kind of looks sort of like, oh, and then he gets out there and gives the speech and plays the part of the president, right? Which is what everyone is doing on some level. Everyone knows that there is a public persona the president has to have to inspire confidence. And so I do understand why performers were like, well, I like that part of the presidency, right? Why they're like, I like the performance aspect, but they don't realize that if you want to be a good president, you actually have to go afterwards, go home, back to your office, stay up all night. And if there is a war, literally decide who lives and who dies. It's a scary job. And if you aren't a little bit narcissistic, you're not going to want it. Like, honestly, every president in the history of the world has been a little bit narcissistic except for Jimmy Carter. And that was probably why he wasn't a super effective president, because I don't think he was a narcissist. You have to think you deserve that amount of power. You have to love attention. You have to love being the person who makes all of these life and death horrifying decisions. So I do understand why celebrities, because they are all narcissistic, feel like, oh, I would like that. But unfortunately, you need the combination of being effective and narcissistic. You can't just be narcissistic.
I so agree. That's hilarious. I never thought about it in the sense that if you're not a narcissist, you probably won't succeed. But I think you're right. And you know what it makes me think of too is I do also believe the same goes for anybody who wants to get into Hollywood or is an actor or anything on that level of spotlight. A lot of them will say, I'm shy. I'm so shy. And I'm like, I don't know that that's shyness. I don't think that's what you think it is. I think there has to be an aspect where you want attention because there's ways to practice your craft without the whole world as your audience, right? Like that is a key element to it. And you're right. I think if you want to go even into upper echelon politics, for governor, president, whatever that might be, part of the job is that you are catering to an entire audience. That's a key part of the whole role, right? So I think you're so spot on. That's really fascinating. Okay, so let's go back to Spencer for a bit. So his original celebrity identity was built around being hated, right? And usually we think of being hated as a massive liability in politics, but increasingly being hated by the right people can be a political asset, which is wild. If people already distrust the establishment, then someone who's running and being mocked by the media or dismissed by quote unquote insiders can actually help them. This is the way I think things have shifted a lot during the Trump era. People feel like if everybody in politics thinks that Trump is a bad guy, well, clearly he must be on our side. That's why they don't like him, right? And surely Spencer Pratt is the same thing. He's following the same playbook again. And I think that becomes proof that they're dangerous to the system. It becomes proof that they're saying what other people are afraid to say for those people, right? They think this person is speaking truth to power because the people who are in power don't like them. That is a wild way that some people view all of this, but it is is the way that a lot of people view it. I think this is also what makes this whole thing feel so unnerving, right? Because the same skill set that made Spencer so powerful on the hills, which is like, for instance, provoking people, creating conflict, finding ways to stay visible, turning grievances into content, all of that is now a skill set that he's carrying into politics, and it's benefiting him. It scares me because I do feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg for us. Like, I don't think Spencer's hardly going to be the last person, right? I mean, Sarah just predicted Dax Shepard. We've been calling it for him for a while. I don't think the problem is the celebrity itself. I think it's when celebrity kind of becomes a shortcut around scrutiny, right? Because if someone is famous enough, voters feel like they already know them. We've talked about that parasocial relationship forever. Imagine that someone who you feel like you know because you see them on social media all the time, you watch their movies or their TV shows, then starts to run. It feels like your friend is running to a degree, right? But knowing someone's persona is not the same as knowing their politics. We know that. Watching someone's marriage on TV is not the same as understanding their budget priorities. Seeing someone cry on TikTok or on their chair is not knowing how they're going to handle a whole city department. But persona is so powerful. And I think these days it's more powerful than policy. But Sarah, I want to ask you, after all of this that the way we've broken this down, do you think, in a weird way, a reality TV villain is actually the perfect modern political candidate?
I mean, for LA, maybe. Here's the thing. I was listening to an episode of The Town where they were talking about the shy Pratt effect, right? So there is this, like, the shy voter, right? There was the shy Trump voter. There was the shy Thatcher voter in the 80s in the UK, because a lot of people didn't want to admit they were voting for Margaret Thatcher, but they were. And so it wasn't cool to vote for her. But a lot of people just were kind of like, I still like her, right? And so I think that, I hope he doesn't win, but I do agree that he might actually have even more support than we realize. That a lot of people don't want to say it, but they support him. And there's also the Bradley effect, right? And we have to remember that polls are inherently inaccurate because of the Bradley effect. So Trump, the reason why everyone said Hillary Clinton had basically, I think by the end it was over an 80% chance of winning the presidency, and then she lost by a lot, at least the Electoral College. The reason was people were lying to pollsters because of the Bradley effect. And the Bradley effect actually came up in California. This is the first place the Bradley effect was witnessed, because there was an election and one of the candidates, whose last name was Bradley, he was a black man. Everyone said, yeah, I'm going to vote for him. And then they did not vote for him. And so people were embarrassed to tell the pollsters that they were going to vote for the other guy who might, be less intelligent or less articulate, or might seem like the less progressive choice. And I do think that people in LA, just by the nature of the entertainment industry, are often very free with the truth, flexible about the truth. And so I could see them being like, I'm going to give this pollster what they want. Right. That's the thing that they first documented in California. But it exists elsewhere, where people are embarrassed in front of the pollster, even though they don't tell the pollster. So they don't tell the pollster the truth. So who knows? He might become mayor. That's scary. If you're listening to us from Los Angeles, please don't vote for him as a joke, because anytime in American history people have done that, it doesn't turn out well. Don't do that. Voting for something as a joke is why the UK is no longer part of the EU.
God, good example. It's so true. Yeah. Oh, wow. I love everything that you just said. You know what I always think about with the shy voter? My comparison is always, if we recall, famous Canadian band Nickelback, for many years, they had the highest selling tour. They were the best touring band. I shouldn't say best touring band, but best selling tour band around for years. And this is when, and we're in a world where everyone loves to shit on Nickelback, right? Everyone's like, who the hell listens to Nickelback?
Everyone.
Well, the reality was that everybody was listening to Nickelback. And not only that, they were going to see them on tour in public.
I know.
Their faces out.
I know. Watch that Nickelback documentary, listeners. If you haven't, it's actually fascinating. It's a good documentary. And you know who's a Nickelback fan? We have a complicated relationship with him here, but Ryan Reynolds is a Nickelback fan.
I know. And it doesn't surprise me because he's very Canadian in that way. And listen, I won't lie. I enjoyed a little Nickelback back in the day. I did. Who did. And listen, they got some good ballads, guys, okay? Chad Kroeger has a specific kind of crew that I do miss. Anyway. Okay, this feels like a good time to take a quick little break. We will be right back.
Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are. With 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
And we're back. Okay, before we jump into our final segment, since Sarah got us deep into the current election, I want to give you some updates, some real-time updates. This is as of today as we're recording this, which is June 4th. Karen Bass, who is the current mayor of LA, she's advanced to the runoff. Now, for quite some time, right up until these last couple days, Spencer was head-to-head with Nithya Raman. They've been in a steady fight for the second slot, and it still hasn't been called yet. It's pretty tight. I'm amazed because he was in third place for quite some time, and then in the last few days, he's edged out Nithya. It looks like he's gonna be facing Karen, which is pretty wild and astounding. And I think it speaks to what you were just saying, Sarah, about the shy voter and the Bradley effect, that I do think you're spot on. And I think a lot of people just don't want to admit that they're keen to vote for him. I think that's exactly what's happening. So
I'm so scared, though. Just sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go on.
I'm so scared because, listen, if you have this completely unqualified white man running against a black woman, I think it's going to be impossible for her team to do accurate polls and then figure out where she's doing well and where she needs to focus her resources because she's behind, right? That's a real disadvantage that people of color and actually women of all races in politics face, where their polls are not accurate because of the Bradley effect. And it makes campaigning for women, people of color, that much harder. So if you support Spencer Pratt. If you support Spencer Pratt, Chris will probably run one day too. If you support Spencer Pratt, the least you can do is be honest about it, because then you give Karen Bass a fair chance and it's a fair fight. So that would be what I would say to any listener. I don't think any of our listeners would vote for Spencer Pratt. But if you are, have the balls to tell the pollster you are doing so she can run an effective campaign and get her message out there, and it's a fair fight.
I so co-sign that. And, a lot of our listeners are American. Almost half of our listeners are American. So share that news with your friends. Now you know all the history behind this man. He's not someone I think that can be trusted. He plays a good game. He knows how to show that he might be and put on that mask, but I don't trust him. I don't think any voters should, but he's clearly saying the right things. He's playing Trump's card, and that scares me. And yeah, right now, the way that the numbers are looking, it looks like Karen will ultimately take it, but I think it's too soon to tell. And I also feel like, he's been targeting her very specifically in his campaign, and that's also because of the fires, which is smart for him to run his election on. People are really moved by that. And so she's kind of approaching things from more of a bureaucratic angle, which would have worked if she wasn't running against a celebrity. So I don't know. I'm quite worried. He may take this. We, of course, will keep you updated. Things might be different by the time this episode is out. If that's the case, we will have the most recent stats in the show notes. Okay, this brings us to our final segment. Hindsight is 2026, where we choose the one moment where we might have handled things differently if we were the subject of the story. I feel like there's too many with Spencer, but Sarah, what would that be for you? Maybe it's the first bad choice he made.
I mean, honestly, and this is low-hanging fruit, but don't run for mayor, right? I mean, maybe campaign for a candidate that you like. If you really don't like Karen Bass, that's the democratic process. You don't have to like the incumbent, but then find a candidate you like and campaign for them. there's got to be a better way for this guy to find attention, to access attention. I don't know. Find some other stunt that isn't going to actually cost people's lives, because LA has lots of fires. They're going to have more fires. And what's going to happen to Los Angeles if he's the mayor during one of those fires? It's going to be like when Nero fiddled in ancient Rome and everyone died, right? You know, it's going to be like when Spencer Pratt TikToked through the fires, right? Like it's going to be the modern version of that. This is life and death. This is not the way to access attention. Or you know what? Fine. Run for mayor. Once you realize you're gaining traction, drop out of the race. You've achieved your goal of getting attention. Don't actually seriously run. And he's seriously running. He has lots of campaign ads. He's trying, guys. It's not a joke. He now has figured out that he could potentially do this, and he likes the idea of being mayor.
Yeah, I mean, one of the scary things is because he is famous of a degree, he has donations from people who have deep pockets, right? David Foster being one of them, like we mentioned. And once you get a name like David Foster, who's a pretty big deal over in LA, on your side, as soon as I saw, because a couple weeks ago, I want to say they posted a video of David Foster performing at a campaign party he and Catherine McPhee did for Spencer. That's when I realized, oh shit, this is real. He might win. That was the turning point for me where I realized this is real.
Question.
Yeah.
Do we know, are David Foster's daughters, who are behind Nobody Wants This, are they supporting Spencer Pratt?
I actually don't know. That's a good question.
I don't want to have to listen to their podcast. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of theirs, but
that would alarm me. And in which case, like, everyone know that if that's the case, let's all look this up before we watch season 3 of Nobody Wants This, because even if you love Adam Brody, you should not be supporting them if that's the case. I'm not saying it is the case. It might not be the case. I don't think they are aligned with their father on all things.
I am doing a quick Google search as you speak. I'm not saying much about it. They would be smart to not comment at all. I'll say that much. So I don't know. But I will say they are Zionists, Sarah. So I'm not a particular fan. But hey, separate the art of the artist. If you want to watch their show, that's fine. But you make a good point, because I do think this is a strange time for also celebrities of that network. Like, how are they addressing this? I know Stephanie Pratt, Spencer's sister, who was also an infamous character on The Hills, she at first was very anti-Spencer. She was actually very vocal and telling people, do not vote for my brother. It's dangerous. I was amazed. But she's also since changed her tune. So that's interesting. I don't know if he paid her off or what the hell happened there. But
does he have enough money to pay her off? Like, how much money is in this man's bank account at present?
No, I wonder. I do think he gets brand deals. He's on social media. It's going to be weird having a mayor who's on TikTok all the time, because I don't think he'll stop doing that. It will be interesting, listen, if he does win, knock on wood, because I think he'll be very much like the first social media savvy politician we've had. Because even like you look at Trump, he's not of that age, first of all, and demo, but he's not been famous in that way. Spencer's tapping into another generation plus this other generation. That's what scares me. That means he's got even more people behind him than Trump did when he kicked off, right? He's cornering multiple demos. That's scary. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And the whole thing is terrifying. So what would you do differently?
Leave Heidi alone.
Oh, yeah, poor Heidi.
I don't know why. I just kind of always she breaks my heart a little bit. And when I've been seeing her in all this and his campaigning, she looks a little lost to me. I don't know. And obviously she looks good for him, saying I've been in a 20-year relationship. We have 2 kids together. It looks good. She's blonde. She's got the appeal of First Lady energy, I guess, if you could say that.
Does she?
In aesthetic only.
Even in aesthetic, I guess by LA standards, like the First Lady of LA.
Republican standards, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, new Republican standards, because I always forget the Republican wife is no longer Laura Bush. I always forget that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. A lot of this demographic doesn't know Heidi, and they don't know all of the details of the reality here. So I don't know. She breaks my heart. Guys, she had 10 plastic surgeries in a day. Who funded that? Was it Spencer? I fear to know. But anyway, I just wish that hadn't happened, because I do think if he'd left Heidi alone, he wouldn't have become such a villain. He wouldn't have become such a big character. I think it was a little bit of a domino effect, but of course that probably also means he never would have left her alone. He knew what he was doing. He knew that this was the way to become a character on that show. And he's also, I hate to say it, but he's always been a few steps ahead of the game. He tends to see things before they happen. He knew that reality TV was going to be a thing and take off. He knew that The Hills was going to take off. He knew that the moment the fires happened, that this could be something to run on and it could torpedo Karen's mayorship. So he's very kind of chillingly smart in that way. So I don't know, Sarah, I'm scared.
I'm terrified,
Yeah. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode. We will keep you posted on all things Spencer Pratt and the mayoral race. Thank you to all of you listeners. You can listen to more of The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me on Instagram at Canada Whore. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me at Sahagian Sarah on Instagram and Threads. If you liked this podcast, we would also really love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. We're getting close to 100 reviews on Apple Podcasts, and that would be a wonderful milestone if we could just surpass that. So it also helps other listeners find us. If you would like us to keep growing, one thing that really helps to make the show more sustainable is if you support us on patreon.com, and there are benefits, absolutely. It's also just a way of making it easier for us to produce the show and hopefully to do some cool new things with the show. So thanks for listening, guys.